Okay, we're on the final module now of our complex numbers course. So we're going to learn about division today. So what if I had a plus bi, it's a complex number, divided by c plus di? How do I work these problems? Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to rationalize the denominator in such a way that I end up with no imaginary number. That is the purpose of the conjugate. So if I multiply the denominator by its conjugate, let's see what happens. So what's the conjugate of the denominator here? What's the conjugate of the denominator? Well, it's going to be c minus di. Because all I have to do is switch the sign in the middle. But if I multiply the denominator by that, I must multiply the numerator by that as well. Otherwise, I am changing the problem. So that's my first step. It's going to be multiplied top and bottom by the conjugate of the denominator. Okay, so now let's see what happens at the bottom. So at the bottom, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get c plus di multiplied by c minus di. And this is the same as a plus b multiplied by a minus b. And so I'm going to get c squared minus d squared I squared. And that's going to be c squared plus d squared, because I squared is -1. So that's my denominator. So in my denominator, I'm going to end up with c squared plus d squared. Now let's see what will happen in the numerator. In the numerator, what I'm going to have is I'm going to have a plus bi multiplied by c minus di. So this is a times c is ac. A times minus di is minus ADI. BI times C is BCI. And this now becomes BDI squared. This is BI multiplied by minus DI. So this becomes AC minus AD minus BC I, and this becomes plus BD. Becomes plus BD because this is -1. So this becomes AC plus BD minus AD minus BCI. So that's what our numerator becomes. So this is AC plus BD minus AD minus BC. Now, couple questions you would have if this was a live class, right? You might have a question right here, okay? So what you want to recall here is that A plus B multiplied by A minus B is just going to be A squared minus B squared. We ended up with a plus because of this. We started out in minus, but this is -1, so it's minus times minus. So that's one thing you might want to double check on, work it out, okay? And right here, if you're asking how did this become negative here, is because I factored out a -1. So when you multiply this through back, you will get back a positive. So negative times AD and negative times a negative gives me a positive BC, okay? You want to be careful with that. Now, all this right here will make more sense when we actually do an example. So let's just jump to an example right quick. Okay. So let's say I had Z1 is equal to 3 plus 4i. And let's say Z2 is 6 plus 2i. And let's say you're asked to find Z1 divided by Z2, which means you're asked to do 3 plus 4i divided by 6 plus 2i. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply the denominator by the conjugate of Z2, which is 6 minus 2i. And it means you have to multiply the numerator as well by the same thing, 6 minus 2i. So we have two separate multiplications to work out. The denominator is easier to work out because what I have is a case of Z times its conjugate. And if you want, you can look at it as a case of A plus B, A minus B. So I can work this out really quickly. I know what I'm supposed to get. I'm supposed to get A squared, which is going to be 36. And I'm supposed to get minus B squared. So what is minus B squared going to be? It is going to be minus 4i squared. But because I squared is negative, this is going to be plus 4. So this then becomes plus 4. Okay. So now I just have to do my multiplication for my numerator. Right? So if I do my multiplication for my numerator, what I'm going to have is 3 plus 4i multiplied by 6 minus 2i. So I'll have 3 times 6, and then 3 times minus 2i, 4i times 6, and 4i times minus 2i. All right? So what's that going to give me? 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times minus 2i is minus 6i. 4i times 6i is 24i. And 4i times minus 2i is minus 8i squared. So I know I have to take a look right here. These are both i's, so I can do something there. So this becomes 18 plus 18i plus 8. How do I get plus 8 again? Because this is minus 8 times minus 1. So 18 and 18 becomes 26 plus 18i, which is the same thing as I could factor out a 2. So if I factor out a 2, I get 2 and I get 13 plus 9i. So my numerator becomes 2, 13 plus 9i. And I'll show you how this comes in handy now. Because now this in the bottom here is 40, right? So I have 2, 13 plus 9i divided by 40. So now I could cancel out this 2, right? So I'm going to be left with 13 plus 9i over 20. And now that's my answer. This right here becomes my answer. Got it? Very good, very good, very good. Now let's try one more. All right, and what I want you to do after I give you these complex numbers, I want you to pause the video and give it a shot. All right, so let's say I say Z1 is equal to 4 plus 2i. And let's say Z2 is equal to 2 minus 5i. And you're asked to find Z1 divided by Z2. All right. So again, this is where you pause the video and give it a try. So 4 plus 2i divided by 2 minus 5i. Instinctively, you should think this has to be multiplied by 2 plus 5i, which means the top has to also be multiplied by the same thing, 2 plus 5i. Okay? Now, you already know in the bottom here, we have a case of A plus B multiplied A minus B. That's how that is designed, right? So in the bottom here, we will have A squared, which is going to be 4. It's supposed to be minus B squared. What is B? B is 5i. So what I'll have is minus 25i squared, which is minus 25 multiplied by minus 1, hence plus 25. This is plus 25. Okay? Now, all that's left for you to do before we start simplifying is do this multiplication at the top, which is 4 plus 2i minus 2 plus 5i. So this is 4 times 2 is 8 plus 20i plus 4i plus 10i squared. So this is 8 minus 10. How do I get minus 10? Because this is negative 1 times 10 plus 24i. So this is minus 2 plus 24i. And again, you could factor the 2 from there. Okay? You could factor the 2 or a minus 2 from there. If you get minus 2 from there, you will get 1 minus 12i. So you can leave it like this, minus 2 plus 24i, or you could factor the minus 2, okay, from there. It won't help much because you can't go any further. Minus 2 plus 24i. If the denominator were even, then I would be able to then say, cancel out the minus 2 or so. But that's it. I hope this course has been helpful. If there's an opportunity for you to leave a comment, thumbs up. If there is something else I can help you with, let me know. This is where we're stopping.